Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
I'm Mac.
And I'm Pepper.
And as our video for Stone Timber today, we will be giving our CHIPPI Review thoughts of Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia, which is Stonemeier's second published game.
Yes.
So it was pretty early on in the life of Stonemaier Games. It always kind of surprises me. In my head, it's probably because they're kind of two of their more popular games, Viticulture and Scythe. I always kind of think those were like the first two, but actually there were this one and yet another one before Scythe even came to be. So,
Yep. I think this is actually the fifth game that we got, fifth Stonemaier game. Because we got Viticulture, Between Two Castles, Wingspan Tapestry, and then Euphoria, which it doesn't feel like it because we haven't played it very much to actually be one of the earlier Stonemaier games that we got. But it is.
Yeah, so then we can get right into our CHIPPI review. So we'll start off with the core mechanics of the game, and I'll just start. I gave it a 7. So I think it's got a very classic worker placement feel to it. I think this one versus some other worker placement games, I think the spots don't seem as easily recognizable as in some games. Like I guess I just think of like Stone Age or Architects of the West Kingdom, where you can kind of really tell where those worker placement spots are. This board is a little more busy, so sometimes it's hard to tell which spots are actually worker placement spots. But I think it works well, like a lot of worker placement games, and it has the bumping mechanism, which I think is really a solid one for worker placement, where kind of the spots are still always available to you, but then you're kind of potentially helping your opponents, giving them another turn pretty much that they don't have to spend picking up their dice. So I really like how that works. And I think kind of one of the negatives would be that it's a race game, which I think Stonemaier Games likes to make their games, and I think that's just really hard to pull off well when you're racing to a certain, like in this case, you're trying to put out all your stars. Trying to do that, I think that's very hard to do and make it kind of feel different, really different every time. But yeah, so it's still a 7 because I think it's still a very solid worker placement.
Well, in my 3 games of it, I can tell you that I rated the core mechanics just a little lower at a 6.5. And that's because I pretty much agree with everything you're saying. I think that I actually like the race game aspect to it. I think it needs to be a race game in order for it to work. I don't think I'd like it as much if it was just a traditional, worker placement, kind of get to a certain amount of whatever, after a certain amount of rounds or whatever, see who has the most points then, because it kind of keeps you pushing forward on your moves, on, kind of striving, and I don't know, maybe that's just something I need. But I think the main thing that I don't like, there are a lot of good things that I do like about it, like the cards, some of this stuff is kind of cool, but I think it's just like there are only 2 resources that actually like help you when you bring your cards back, and so unless you are like set up to go on that resource track, it's kind of like an out of the way move to go and get like either the orange or the green, because if you have like
You mean to get your
dice back,
well, you can get your dice back no matter what, but to keep your
keep your hand limit up, which you can not always need to keep it all the way up, but it's helpful if you can grab more cards. So I felt like that in my first playthrough. I think I was like I had a blue guy, and so I was going for water, and not that you necessarily have to do those things, but if no one goes on your spots, or if they're overlapped in I don't even know what area or faction, I guess, then they probably are helping each other out a lot, move that tracker up, and so you're kind of alone if they're not going to that, or if they're not needing what's there, and then also at the same time, then you're spending one of your 2 starting die to go and get something to get your hand limit up. So I kind of felt that was challenging in my first playthrough. I felt like it was much easier in my second playthrough because I took a green faction, which is one of the 2 resources, and so I just felt like that helped a ton to have a resource or a card that, you know, kind of push you towards one of those resources that got you your hearts or your hand limit thing up kind of early on. So just like minor picky things, but otherwise I really like that it's a race game and just kind of the overall concept I find unique. So
Yeah, I came in at a 7.75. But yeah,
always splitting hairs.
Not quite a 7.77.
nope, not quite, not that lucky. But yeah, like you said, it's a little messy at times. Can be hard to tell kind of what does what, and how things are connected. But I do really like the race aspect, and it's so satisfying every time you get a star out there. It feels like big. It's
Yeah.
big.
Feels like a
love-
Dune Imperium. kind of
Another
thing.
one.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Really love the dice placement and everything they do with that. And if you roll doubles, you can place both of them at once,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
fun.
huge and feels like someone's rolling doubles, someone's not. They're probably going to have a big advantage in the game, so it might be a little broken, but
And I think that, I don't know if it's actually in the rule book, but I think there is a rule that they have out there that if you are going to use those extra ones, it costs you like one of your resources or something.
no.
Just so that you can still use them, but I think that way someone doesn't get lucky and just roll a bunch of doubles and get extra turns or possibly triples or whatever if you have
Yeah.
more.
Could happen.
That's true.
Yahtzee. Inside of Euphoria, you're playing Yahtzee.
But yeah, and then also kind of trying to manage your knowledge, keep
Oh.
it low so that they don't overthrow you or whatever, and kind of choosing how many dice you want to pull back. You don't have to pull them all back when you pull back,
Right.
because you do not want to roll up to 16, otherwise you are going to lose one of your workers, which is another very horrible thing, which may have happened to me
You'll have to check out a playthrough.
very early on in the game.
But yeah.
just a lot of cool use of dice.
Yeah, I that is a good point. I do like how you can choose which ones to bring back because you can kind of mitigate certain spots, like the best spots, if there are kind of two people with the same type. If you put a high die number there and you just leave it there, then they can never use the production one to actually increase that track. So you can kind of block them in a way by
Which
doing
I
that.
would never do, but you've done a couple times.
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Boys, boys, boys.
But yeah, I think there are some very unique things with the dice. But then we get into history. I think I've played it. I feel like it has to be 6 times now because I played a couple times with you, a
I
couple
played it
times with
3
you. We
times.
did a couple practice rounds
Yeah.
in the actual playthrough that we've got out there. So I think it's about 6 times.
Yep, I played it 3 times this year.
I have a 4 for
Okay.
my history.
Yeah. So yeah.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
sorry, that was history, part of our
Yeah.
chippy scale. But then we get into investment. We'll let Pepper start this one off.
I gave this one a 6, which I don't think it's actually that long of a game. It goes by pretty quickly, as is with race games most of the time. It was hard to get to the table for us, just relearning it, so I think that hurt the investment a little bit, as well as I don't know how much replayability there is. I think it's probably going to feel pretty similar from game to game, whatever factions you're using. You're kind of trying to score in the same way with each of them.
Right.
I agree. I put it at a 7, so just a little bit higher, but I agree with everything you said. Not really sure about, with the replayability. I will say, though, this one has become, one of, I very much like Euphoria, I guess is what I'm tripping over trying to say. And I think, with more playthroughs, it probably has potential to maybe move up, kind of where it lands in my current Stonemaier rankings. And so I feel like it's good time investment to play it, because I enjoy the puzzle of it. And so, yeah, I just think there's probably just a couple of minor things with it, but other than that, I just think it is a cool one to pull out from time to time. So.
Yeah, I'm coming in right in the middle with a 6.5. 'Cause yeah, since it is a race game, like you said, it's not too long. Because you're just trying to get finished as quickly as possible in this game, get your stars off. And then I agree too that I feel like it could feel kind of a little samey from game to game. I know there is an expansion, but I'm not entirely sure what it adds. If that would kind of changed things up a bit or not. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, just this one does seem like one where, especially if you got to like 10 plays, I don't know how much other new stuff you'd have to explore in the game.
Yeah.
But I think you could still find games, unique things from play to play in the game.
And I don't know how many of those cards there are, but they do have those like starter players or whatever the card you start with. The card you start with, your little person, like you can change those up, and those give you different abilities and stuff too.
Right.
So.
And I think this one probably plays well at different player counts too. It's still not too long, so that is one good benefit to it as well. But then we get into the first P, presentation. I just about said the second P. I've done that before. Of an 8.5 is what I'm giving it. I find the artwork unique. I think I would like this world. I'd like another game in this world, I think. I think it could be cool to explore. I really like the look of the dice. They're kind of unique. They may not be the clearest dice, but I do like that they aren't just a normal pips on a die. So I do like that they're different, but I could see where some of those might look a little similar. But I still really like them. And the resources in the game are really cool. A lot of use different shapes on the different things, and I like the colors that they use for those. I think it works with kind of the colors of the game that they try to use on the cover and stuff like that. The insert is pretty solid. I'm trying to think if their cards are ever in a mess, if things are in a mess at the bottom when you open it up. I don't remember, but overall I know the dice kind of go in that nice system that they use. One negative would be kind of that unique box shape. I could see that. It's not like a really bad awkward shape, which is good, but just having it being a little longer, depending on how you like to store your games, it could throw things off slightly. But yeah.
Are you gonna leave anything for us to talk about? No, I think you covered it
Nope.
all.
Not a single thing.
I
left 2 things out there if you can find them.
Oh boy. I just rated it a little lower out of 7. I agree. I love the resources. I love the die. I think that the green, the yellow, or not the yellow, or I almost said pink. The yellow, the orange, the blue, I think all that stuff is just really fun and great. He does wooden bits so well in all of his games, so no surprise there. But I guess the things that I feel like the board is just a little busy, and it's just hard. Only playing 3 times, I just felt like in my first game, I really just was like, I don't understand like how this all flows together kind of a thing. And so it took me, 2 more games to kind of really understand like, okay, so this is what, this happens when you put this tile on it. And then this corresponds to this little thing where you can put your star. And like, so kind of that, like, oh, you can use this one or you can play on this one, and both of them will feed into this star port or whatever. And so that took me a little while to get. And so then, like, I think the green one is just all out different than all of the other resources, and so I didn't really understand why that was like that. And then there's like a little piece down in the corner, and then there's another piece up in the upper left, and there's another little piece down in the bottom right, and I'm like, I don't understand. But it makes sense when you like actually take in the overall board and understand like kind of what that theme is supposed to be, I think, in the long run. But just kind of starting out, it took me a couple of tries to kind of get there. But other than that, I think yeah, it's great. I do love the color scheme and just kind of the thematic piece of it. I mean, I don't know if that really comes through, but I mean, it's there enough, I think. So
Yeah, I'm at a 7.75 again here. Like you said, I just love those resources and the colors, the bright green and the orange. But like you said, the board is a little hard to take in, especially your first couple plays.
Yeah.
A little confusing.
Yeah, for sure. I guess then we'll get to the second P of preference. What does Pepper have to say about the second P?
Before these last 2 plays, I had written in here a 4.44 But after that, I have it at a 7.5.
Wow.
I really enjoyed these last couple plays, and I think that's just more getting comfortable with the game and actually understanding how it all ties together. Like I said, really love the dice placement. I think that's the whole game for me. Just really unique and feels more different
You
than I thought
definitely
it
were
would.
milking your dice placement in those last couple of games.
When you didn't kill all, well,
I was like,
your
must be
dice
nice
didn't
to have
run
more
away.
than 2 dice.
I had more than 2.
Okay.
He even had
But
his
Jesse
run away
was like, I'm
they
gonna
got
bump
too smart.
myself. I'm gonna bump myself.
They got too smart.
Sorry, continue.
No, I'm good.
What are we on, preference? Okay,
Yeah,
so
the second P.
all right, so I put mine at a 7. Like I said, I think this game has potential to be kind of like one of the mid-range Stonemaier games for me, and I think that
High ceiling there.
I know there are
One of the
just
mid-rangers.
follow for more videos later on. You'll see a further explanation of why they're. Yeah, that's why I said it that way. But I think there are just really great things about this game. It's a race game. I kind of enjoy that it's like, it's racy, kind of like Psy in a way. Well, I mean, mostly in the same way. But the way the mechanics work are so different than Psy that it's like it's an all-out different kind of racing feel to it. And so I think it's just kind of a fun one to bring to the table.
Well, for
And
my
I'm still learning it, so that definitely makes it intriguing. Sorry, continue.
for my preference, I come in at a 6.5.
Just me and you playing it.
I'm probably most likely not going to be the one to suggest this one. Not that it is bad. At 6.5 would mean if someone else wanted to play it, I definitely would be willing to join in and play it.
I'm gonna have to request it.
Gonna have to request it. But yeah, I would maybe request to play it maybe like once a year or something. But it just,
Harsh. 6.5 once a year.
well, based on the fact that we have like
Yeah.
200 games,
That's not my fault.
I wasn't saying it was your fault.
know.
I was just, it's not one that, I mean, there's other games that I'd want to play multiple times throughout the year. Or, once a month type thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is just one that, it brings a unique enough experience to kind of get it to the table then, but at the same time, I don't know that I would ever be like 100% into like playing it consistently, like
I get
once a month or something like that. Just because then I think it would really, and maybe it wouldn't. I would think it would start to show kind of just. It might be kind of like a Stone Age or whatever, where
Yeah, I think
as you
that
played it a lot, it would just kind of feel the
replayability
same.
would come into question.
Right, but I think it's still a solid one that I'm definitely willing to play if others really want to check it out, for sure. And then we get into It Factor, and I'm gonna give it a 2 for It Factor, because I do like the fancy dice, and I do like the bumping mechanism. But there may be another Stonemaier game that uses this bumping mechanism that I may like more.
Actually, I'm struggling to find. What
I know,
game that
I
is.
can't remember what it is now.
Okay, that's gonna be my little secret. You'll figure it out when we eventually. And it's not my little. I wasn't hinting at my little side there.
Yeah,
What the heck?
I know, I'm like,
Do you guys have an It Factor?
yep. I do have an It Factor. I'm just stuck on
Does
it.
anyone know? You can leave it in the comments below if you know what I'm talking about as the other Stonemaier game that bumps.
Oh, okay. I know. Okay. My It Factor is a 7. And that's just because it's so new to me that I just feel like it's just really intriguing to me right now. And so I don't know if this will change over time, kind of like you said, but I think I just really do enjoy that it's a race game. For someone like me who struggles to think moves ahead and kind of that piece, I think this is like the best type of game for like to push me to do that type of thought process. And so for me, this is just kind of kind of like Psy in the same way, where it's just interesting to try and figure out the puzzle of it. And I enjoy that I'm not overly affected by the other players on the board. I mean, there are some things, if you don't join in on building one of those little squares or whatever, there can be some negative interactions, but it's you're mostly just playing your game by yourself, trying to kind of coordinate, but not necessarily needing or affecting others. And so I think for me that makes it just a little bit different. And so, yeah, I just, the novelty of being a new game, I think holds a lot of that for me. But yeah, I just think it's been a really fun game to play and learn this year.
Yeah, I have it at a 4. It factors always tough.
I know.
For me, I'm like, well, do I really go like wow when I think of this game?
Right.
Like it probably factors into kind of production a little bit, which it has a really nice production, but there's not really anything
Major
about the
hook.
game that
Yeah.
is like a major hook to it. But still solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then we'll get into our total
Overall
score, and I'm coming in at a 6.7. So I think a lot of my average would probably be around a 7. So it's just slightly below average, but still right there. I think a lot of my games kind of come in right around that 6.5 to 7.5. So it's just kind of one of those that it's like there'll be just that time where I'm like, you know what? I want to play Euphoria today. It's just one of those type of games for me, I think.
Mine comes out at an overall 6.5, which is most likely just because I have a low playthrough count on it, because everything else is literally 7.
That's interesting that his. I wouldn't
It's
think
still
that his would be higher.
I did have an 8.5 on presentation, though.
That's true. I rated it a little lower. But, yeah, so I think, 6.5.
Yeah,
With
I have it.
room to grow with more players.
With room to grow, potentially, hopefully.
Yeah, I have it at a 6.8, and I would say with room to grow as well. It feels like at least a 7 for me, if I had to just throw a number out there, but just a little short, according to the CHIPPI scale.
So, yeah, if you added kind of a 0.5 on both yours based on your current play counts, that'd put you in the low 7s, which,
Yep.
So, yeah, those are our CHIPPI review thoughts on Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia. Let us know in the comments below if you've played the expansion. Ignorance is bliss, I think it is. And if that changes it up and it's something that we have to look into, maybe we can try that one out, get that one and try it out. But yeah, otherwise, we hope to see you on our other Stone Timber videos. And as always, don't forget to
Keep on nibbling
on our content.